briefly, if you have something that you need to do, please step out and make a phone call, but while the meeting's in session, please turn off all cell phones. Thank you.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, May 22nd, 2014, 7:30 p.m. for the special meeting. Our invocation tonight will be by Lou Rosenberg.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to assemble, to conduct the public's business, to look out for those we represent. Remember that the duty of being elected, appointed, and employees of the public is a high calling. We ask that we might conduct our affairs, the public affairs, with honor and integrity. Forgive us for our personal shortcomings, our professional shortcomings, and those things that we say and do that are hurtful. Be with us tonight as we go about raising the city's standards, raising its aspirations, and making it a place on the map that we all can be proud of. In Christ's name, amen.
We have established a quorum: Councilwoman Castillo, Councilman Morones, Councilman Gallego, Councilman Guerrero, and Councilman Rodriguez. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and pledge the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
At this time, I will entertain any citizens' comments. Mr. Gonzalez?
Mayor, is that on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, council, my name is Fred Gonzalez and I live in Floresville. My comments are related to C&A item 2B regarding the establishment of a charter review committee. More specifically, I want to talk about the makeup of the committee. I strongly recommend that membership on the committee be confined to Floresville citizens. Following is my rationale for this recommendation. This charter is the Bible, so to speak, for the operation of the city, particularly actions taken by the council. And actions taken on behalf of the city directly affect only the citizens of Floresville. Examples: establishment and levy of property tax rates, water, sewer, trash collection rates, infrastructure service rendered or not rendered, ordinances enforced or not enforced, security provided or not provided, etc., etc. Nobody has greater influence on what happens in Floresville governance-wise than the city council. And yet, you cannot serve on it or vote for these folks unless you are a registered voter, that is, Floresville resident. Also, any legislation taken by initiative or referendum begins with registered voters, again, Floresville residents. This includes the approval of this charter and changes thereto. Therefore, it makes sense that those involved in revising this instrument so vital to the running of Floresville should be from among those directly affected by the changes. That's what citizens' input is all about. Bottom line, you shouldn't be able to get by appointment what you can get through the ballot box. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Okay, I have one comment about the charter committee. I actually agree with Fred. I think it's one of the first times I've ever really agreed with him. I do think that it's very important that the committee be made up of citizens of our city. But the more important thing is whatever that committee comes up with, I am assuming is going to come to the ballot box, to the voters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that satisfies me.
Even the numbers go up.
Okay. The other thing that I would like to say, this is a member of the FEDC. First of all, I very much appreciate being on that board, and I hope that we've begun to serve the city well. And part of that is due part to, I think, our executive director, Tommy Baker, who's done an outstanding job. And I really appreciate how he has come back in and pulled us together and been that guiding light for us. But the other person I think has been very instrumental in this is Henrietta. And having those two working together has certainly made our job in FEDC a more cohesive, a more responsible group. And I just want to put those 2 cents in for both of those two people. And I think I can speak for the board, and that we feel that it's been a very positive working relationship with the city, with Henrietta at the helm. And we really appreciate her in that position.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to go on to item 1, presentation and discussion. A, discussion and establishing a committee to review charter for update. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I think my presentation is painfully short. We discussed this matter 2 months ago. We talked about the options available. And as I perceive the item on the agenda tonight, it's to establish a committee by the council, and the council is to propose who's on the committee and what the committee's directions will be. You're using the charter option, which is the council appoints the members. I happen to concur with Mr. Gonzalez's comments that this ought to be comprised of Floridians, the people who live here, because they're obviously the people affected. If you need expertise, you can come from either legal or you can come by somebody that you ask to help you that's participated in charter revisions from other locations as an advisor or counselor or however you want to do it. But I think we've all seen locally what the problems are in the current charter. We've got various ideas on how to cure those. But I think it should be comprised of people that are appointed by the council and are directed that they come back to the council at a certain time with the recommendations, and then allow the council then to determine what goes forward to public referendum.
just recommend that we treat it just like we've done all the other committees where there's an application online that they apply and then the council review them
Yes.
and pick those people.
And I think Fred ought to be somewhere way up on the list. He spoke up earlier tonight.
Download your app.
Where is he? Are you still here?
Anybody have any questions on that?
So you're saying that we can just start up a committee at any given time? So we can-
Under this option. If you're gonna use the commission option, that's a different process.
Is there a number?
Well, your charter has a magic number, if you use the charter number of 15. But let me go back to that. It says the council may call for an election of a charter review commission of 15 citizens. That's if you call for that. Sir? The commission. That's if you use the commission. And I'm only saying that's sort of a magic number. I'm not saying that I'm recommending the commission. My thought would be simply this: it would not exceed 15 because your meeting and your conduct of your business gets unwieldy. I'd recommend some odd number such as 9, 7, 11, but something where somebody can be selected amongst that committee as the chair, and where the committee can reasonably conduct its business and come back to you with changes that are reasonable on the charter. I think everybody in this room that I see when I look around has seen things they don't like about the charter. Everybody sitting at the dais up there has said things about the charter that you didn't like. So it's not just a wish list, but it's trying to make the charter more effective. And I would look at the changes that you propose to make as how to make the present charter work better for this community. Not radical change, but how to make it work so we all benefit.
And under this option, we can review the full charter, not just a portion of it.
And that would be the intent, I think, or should be.
And it's not illegal to do it without consenting the voters that voted on the charter in the first place?
They're still gonna get their shot at the thing because you've gotta present it to them. All you're gonna do is make a proposal.
But it doesn't have to go onto the ballot, just to say for them to approve it or not approve it?
No, they do have to go on the ballot. What I'm saying is, the selection of the commission is one option. You can go to the ballot and have a petition for the creation of the commission. That's option one that we considered when we had this come before you before. And I presented you the memo. The option we're considering tonight, or what I thought we were considering, is the option where you appoint the members and they come back to you with their recommendation on what to submit to the council, to the voters. But we can't change the charter in any event without referendum on those propositions.
Mr. Rosenberg, I think the first step would be to look at the application, put it out there in the newspaper
Sure.
so that folks can apply. And with the residency requirement, that would be the first step. Although the CNA includes a lot more, but we've got to look at the applications. And maybe the council can do a workshop and look at those applications rather than including them in a meeting where we don't have time to review them.
I think that'd be appropriate.
And then from there, we can go on and do the rest of this. So would you recommend that we, when we get to the CMA, that we vote on all of this information at this time?
Let me see what you're asking me here. I think for tonight's agenda purposes, the application is probably the important part. If you're inclined to do so, I would also recommend that you at least tentatively establish a number that you think you're gonna use. My magic number is 9, but you're the folks that make the decision. I think you ought to consider, how big you want the committee to be so you can make it function or ask it to function. Keep in mind, we're also creating this committee in the summertime, and it's difficult to meet, and people are on vacation, so we want people that are gonna be available, and that's part of what I think we're asking for in the application.
Exactly, and we may need a couple of months for the application process. Until August anyway, to allow folks to see it and apply.
I just had a question for Lou. Does there have to be a quorum of that committee present to do business?
Answer, yes.
Okay, so in the summertime, maybe 9 is not enough. Maybe we need a few more than that.
Well, the problem is the bigger the committee
I
gets,
understand.
doesn't necessarily improve your quorum.
I understand, but the likelihood of getting him there might be better. I mean,
Uh,
I've seen that on state.
Unless when you started your organization, you established a smaller number than a majority as a working quorum. That could be done by the committee. In other words, you could say that we can function with a quorum of 3 for discussion.
This is probably an important enough committee that that's probably not a good idea.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just trying to respond to you directly,
okay.
okay? I think it's important enough committee that you would want quorum to be a majority and consistently so,
Okay.
for the reasons that you do that at most organizations. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman?
the meetings by this committee, are they covered by the open
Yes, sir.
meetings? So they have to be announced 72 hours before the
It's
start.
a committee of the council, and it's going to be making recommendations for changes. It meets all the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. Okay? Any other questions that I might be able to shed light or otherwise?
Do we have the names of the previous individuals that were on the charter committee?
I don't.
Ramiro,
I know.
Ramirez might have the name, no?
I think
They should be, huh?
You know, we're asking back to.
They should be, just to kind of get an idea.
It's a good idea, but nevertheless, you know, the announcement is whoever's
Right.
applying now.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make it as simple as each council person gets an appointee. And then you spend your time in your own conscience figuring out who that appointee should be. I'm not suggesting that's my recommendation, but it could be done that way.
Yeah, 3 at large, if you're suggesting, 9.
I'm
So I have 1 each, which is 6, and then 3 at large, if you're suggesting 9.
Would get you none. And that way, at least each one of you could feel like you got your viewpoints in through the appointee.
But do we still have to vote on those appointees, right? Yeah.
Don't you think there's enough appointing done by the council? Maybe the application process would be a better way and would maybe taste a little better to the community?
I can't speak for the taste, but I agree with you.
I'm kind of talking to the council. I just think from a public perspective, that would certainly go a lot further to give credibility to this particular committee, which I think is an important committee.
I think the important thing from my point of view is that it be somebody willing to work.
Well,
It's gonna
it shouldn't
take-
apply if they're not.
It's gonna take a lot of effort to go through and fine tooth the charter.
But you know, when you do all this appointing, it begins to look like the decks are stacked. And that's what we don't
I'm
want.
not disagreeing with you.
I'm talking to the
I know,
employee.
but,
Okay.
okay, I'll get away.
But I'm just trying to get that point across.
You're in the line of
I'm
fire,
just-
Lou, out of the way.
I'm going.
In a way, Mr. Kennedy, I understand something about credibility, but also as a council member, it also is accountability. If you have a representative that you have an open dialogue with, the communication, you know, if you're being held accountable for, you know, what's going on in the FEDC, or, you know, and you have no communication with nobody on that board, you know, then as a councilman, I mean, it's tough. So I understand the credibility, but at the same time, you have to have accountability, someone you can talk to. I mean,
Wait, but the application process should allow you to find those kind of people, I would think.
Yeah, because during the application process, we will select the names.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you still get to stack the deck to somebody.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
One comes to a place, it's open to everybody.
yeah, it's open to everyone.
That's
I, I like that idea, and I think 7 might be the magic number. The smaller the committee, the harder the work.
And it seems to have worked out okay.
Except for the things that you don't want.
Well, I mean, that's part of, you know,
Well, it's not that we don't like
We-
it.
They changed.
It needs to be cleaned up, is what it
The
is.
city has changed, but it's gonna change.
No,
I think we should put it, you know, have it reviewed to have it done legally. You know, there's stuff in there that's redundant and illegal.
Rule by state law.
So,
Can we just do the applications first and see what the response we get?
what are we supposed to be voting on 2B? Can you explain that?
With an effort. It seems to me that what you're doing, number one, and I'm gonna outline this.
Can we wait till we get to item B first, please? Thank you.
May I ask,
Yes, ma'am.
was the previous committee confined to just city residents?
I didn't
Before?
look at the names, I really don't. I think it
Does
was.
anybody know?
I think it was, yes.
Shannon, do you?
It was confined? Okay.
Okay, let's go on to item 2A, consideration and action to approve the P and Z's recommendation to rezone 1503B from residential to business for the purpose of establishing a barbershop business.
I'm going to that P and Z meeting, and I think, you're gonna talk about it,
Okay, I just wanted to say that this did go before planning and zoning. Mr. Hector is seeking a rezoning of the property at 1503 B Street. He submitted an application on March 31st, 2014, to have it rezoned. We had a public hearing. It was attended by some of the neighbors adjacent to this property. They actually are in support of the property. I have received one phone call in reference to one lady who did not care for the change in the zoning. However, she did not attend the public hearing and express her views at that time. It was presented before you, you have the packet, and the planning and zoning comes to you and recommends that you approve as submitted.
I think between Vados in the audience, and we had to put that one because they had forgotten to put it on the agenda for Tuesday. So we went ahead and put it on Thursdays. And I also attended that meeting on the P and Z, and P and Z was okay with it, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve P and Z recommended by the rezoning of 1503B from residential to business for the purpose of establishing a barbershop business.
Can I have a motion? Can I have a second?
one second.
Ms. Castillo, second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, Mr. Liu, now we can go on to item 2B. Consideration and action to approve the creation of a charter review committee to provide recommended charter amendments to the city council, to create a process to select committee members for such charter review committee, and establishing a procedure for candidate applications, including number of individuals to sit on the committee, notice requirements, and deadlines for applications.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I think the three things that I think are important for tonight to answer Councilman Rodriguez's question is, number one, to take the commitment to create the review committee. That's in line one. Number two, to create the process to select the committee. And number three, to establish, if you so choose, the number tonight, and if you don't so choose, to at least establish what it is, to come back and make that determination so that your selection process can go forward with the people that apply. I think those are the three key ingredients.
But we can start taking applications even though we don't select the number right now. Right?
So, take the applications, get the notice out, determine you're gonna make the committee, and determine sometime when you want to select, make the final decision. And it seems to me those are baby steps, but those are essential first steps.
So take applications, take notice, and what else?
And determine when you're gonna make the appointment, if you can.
a second?
I move,
She's gonna make a motion.
that's okay, this one's David, that's easier.
You want you to set a deadline as far as the application process of when we're gonna close it.
No, you'll take a couple of months, or 1 month.
Do we have a deadline to be able to get it on the ballot?
What's it get in the first week of July, like after the 4th of July holidays, like every calendar?
When does it have to get on the ballot by?
I think it's gotta be on the September ballot. It's gotta be back in by
November.
Yeah, we have to have your approval in the way you want it written for everything on the ballot by September.
And my question is that sufficient time, or do they need it, do they need a whole year?
That's,
I think that's kind of your call and the committee's call.
So do we need to set the deadline? To me, the
Today's the 22nd, and I'd say you ought to have your committee constituted by the end of June if you're going to expect them to work July and August to get something back to you by September.
I don't think that's sufficient time.
Okay.
I honestly, because, I mean, I know it's already written and all that has to be done is revised, but I think to get to the nitty gritty, I would push for a year to get it done correctly.
And I kind of think differently because if we could just have a workshop and let the committee members decide if it's, you know, appropriate to do it this year, maybe change 1 or 2 things and put them on there, the most important thing, and then just let the workshop people that are in that committee to decide, you know, before June or July, when you come back and say, we're gonna put a deadline for September, can we get just an opinion of having a workshop before just killing it for a whole year?
But it has to go through, I mean, an approval process, right? I mean, it has to come back as, you know, say 3, 4, 5 times maybe?
Let me suggest one other thing. You may want to categorize those portions that you want to amend. If you're going to take a year, you may want to break this out to where you function, deal with council matters, deal with manager matters, you know, sort of break it down by sections on what you want to revise,
Page 1 through 15 or whatever.
whatever. And it may be a lot easier for you to do it bite-sized like we're suggesting.
Ms. Dickens?
If it's important enough to appoint a committee, wouldn't it be important enough perhaps to give us enough time, the committee enough time, a couple of months for something this big and this important? Seems like you're rushing it, and I'd like to know if there's another agenda there. Is there something else we need to look at? Maybe Lou is right. Maybe you just segment out something that if, Mr. Morales, if there's something you want to get at, if it's only gonna take a couple of months, point it out, and let's put it on the table and.
No, I don't have anything. I have nothing.
So you're thinking-
I'm just saying that if we pick a committee of 9 and say the committee right away sees something that they say it might be a change 1 or 2 items. We don't have to change the,
I'm just thinking it might take a new group of people a little bit of time to get to know each other and then get to working on it. And a couple of months just doesn't seem like.
and I'm not saying that in a couple of months it was good, but what would happen if people would get together and say, well, we already
Well,
killed
then
it
they could
here.
come back to the council and say, gosh, we're done.
And we could come back and say, wait to the council and say, we need more time, we're not gonna do it. I mean, we can,
That's not something I have to set today as far as.
No.
Yeah.
Does July 7th sound good? I mean, that gives you a little bit over a month, that goes to the month of June, and then that's the first Monday after a holiday, so these people have a lot of time. If you're gonna do the notice, if you get it until June, gives you a full calendar month, and then you've got to the following Monday, the first Monday of the month.
Let me make the suggestion that the applicants might also put
you have a meeting on the 10th, Councilman, so you all can make your selection by then, on that 10th meeting, right? Or you have a workshop before that?
It'd be the second meeting, because we're just trying to close the actual application process by that time.
Right.
So we wouldn't look at them until after.
The 10th is your first meeting in July.
So we can look at them at that time, like have a workshop right
You can
before.
present them everything that we have to y'all, and you can take it and then decide on your second meeting or have a workshop if that's what you choose.
Say a 6 o'clock workshop and then set a meeting afterwards at 7.
And you might want to have your applicants indicate the part of the charter they're most interested in, so you can get some ideas of where the public has the most concern. Not mandatory. Something that
Does that sound good? Okay, you need a motion for July 7th?
Yes. For the applications,
Application
deadline,
deadline, yes.
Is that application deadline?
Yes.
Okay.
July what?
Seventh?
Seventh, okay. That Monday prior to the Thursday.
And also, we may add that the application has a residency requirement, because the current applications did not have that.
Does that include the ETJ?
What do you even want to include?
I have a motion by Councilwoman Castillo, may I have a second?
Second motion.
And a second by Councilman Nieto, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now we're going to go on to 3, executive session.
Excuse me,
Mayor, I have a matter I'd like to submit.
if I may suggest, on the agenda, it does state candidate applications including number of individuals. Are you tabling that, or you're just ignoring it?
Now, he said we could wait on it.
Yeah, we're not deciding at this point on the app.
Okay, but don't you have to say you're tabling that portion? You just can't skip it.
Point of order.
Do we need to table that?
You can table it formally. I took it to mean that out of that verbose item, you chose to act on it. Table the balance of the motion. I make a motion to table the number of members to the charter review committee.
Okay, I have a motion, can I have a second?
I second.
Second by Councilman Castillo, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, 3E, executive session. Adjourning to executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters, to receive and deliberate the report by city manager regarding job performance, specifically the following items. I-1 is progress report on the insolvency plan, the year-end projection concerning 2013-2014 adopted budget, including transfers, documenting transfers, revenue variances, and equipment purchases. 2, personnel policies on personnel hires. 3, organizational chart review with any changes in personnel and variances in salaries. 4, scheduled street improvements and repair process. And 5, processing requested brush pickup charges, week cleanup and response by city staff. 6, established date for city manager's quarterly evaluation.
Mayor, I submitted a letter of request to have this held in open session. Pursuant to section 551.74, Texas Government Code, I request that agenda item number 3 for special meetings Thursday, May 22nd, 2014, 7:30, be held in open meeting rather than in closed session, executive session. This item relates to delivering the report of the city manager requiring job performance, specifically the items that you just alluded to. I'm submitting a letter of request in writing to the council as well as to the legal counsel.
Did you want to start with the report?
Yes. In reference to the progress report on the insolvency plan and the year-end projection concerning 2014-2013 adopted budget, including transfers, documenting transfers, revenue, variances, and equipment processes. Since I was just informed of this meeting actually 72 hours ago, I don't have a full report for you today, but I can talk about the issues in reference to the insolvency plan.
Excuse me, Mayor, the acoustics, with that, I'm not sure if it's in the right position, but it's not coming apart.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
It was before, I think you moved the button on there, but it was clear before that.
Hello?
It's on.
But it's on now.
The speakers, it's on, there wasn't on there.
It might be better if it's off. That's
You're not
I don't think-
Okay, that's always again. If you refer to the meeting that we had where the auditor actually reported, I've been following the insolvency plan on the following items. Some of the main goals for the insolvency plan are to return the city to financial stability, improve the efficiency and effectiveness of operations, and to establish best-in-class management policies and procedures. The city has no record of attaining industrial standards for the last 90 days. And we have to work on reserving the 90-day funds. As reported by the comptroller, that is approximately $5 million. It will take us probably another 4 to 5 years to be able to establish that. Many of the key areas within the city services that need to be addressed are the water sewer rates, permit fees, and taxes that have not been adjusted for over time. As city manager, I have implemented under my administration, I've implemented the second phase of your water rates. And we are anticipating the last and third final phase for your water and sewer rates. That will become effective as of May 1, based on your vote that you have. We are beginning to upgrade and improve the water treatment plant by pursuing the application for the USDA, as well as making the changes that happened due to some malfunctions that have happened. We've made some upgraded changes in reference to that. Moving forward on into the insolvency plan, we've had a successful time in reference to do that. As alluded to in reporting in place, we have implemented zero-based budgeting practices, which means we don't spend more than we have received, as was reported on Tuesday night by the current controller. We have implemented and maintained a consecutive permit and fees schedule that you actually have administrated in reference to administrative costs that was not there previously, that should help the bottom line for the city. I do continue to routinely monitor the comptroller and all department heads. I actually met this morning with all staff this morning on site at 7 o'clock. We are working on updating the current ordinances and to accommodate the further growth as was presented in River Bend subdivision, as well as an ordinance that we're putting together for a PDD, the Plan Development Unit District, so that we can actually start jumpstarting the River Bend subdivision. In the plan itself, it estimated that it should be improved to reduce the deficit in increments of 30%. Actually, to date, we have reduced the deficit 72%, having the deficit being approximately $72,278. Are there any questions in reference to the solvency I can answer for you at this time? Okay.
Henrietta, you mentioned updating the current ordinances. Could we get our books updated?
Well, the update is when we rewrite it. You passed a land use plan, and some of your ordinances are outdated, and the land use plan is going to actually generate more zoning ordinances, which what Mr. Chris Stewart was hired to do with planning and zoning.
What I'm making reference to is our ordinance book that we have, that each one of us has one, and we don't have the new ordinances that were passed this past year in there. We don't have them in the book.
Are there any new ordinances passed?
That's several of them.
There's 2 or 3, just like last meetings,
Yeah,
that's a couple of them.
Well, I can direct the city secretary to compile a comprehensive, how far you want to go back, because they've been updating this secretary as well as the previous secretary. They were previously updated, so we can actually address it. But you have to give us some time, because they moved several times in reference to putting that together. Because the transition between the two secretaries, as well as documenting some things we need to be able to go forward.
Do we still have the same members on the ordinance committee?
Yes, currently we do.
And who are they?
I think they're yourself.
Who?
I think they still have you on the committee.
No, I've never been on the ordinance committee.
Well, I'll look into what the dates of who was on the last ordinance committee before. But we haven't had, during my administration, I haven't had any ordinances to bring to the ordinance committee. Any further questions?
Sure. Part of your zero-based budgeting, have you included department heads a little more as far as them improving their ways on cutting costs or changing their way of thinking on purchases? And
Yes, we've been having some small workshops among staff. We've actually issued a permit, actually budget book to all department heads. We've actually also instructed them on how to code it and how to monitor their budget. I know for the police department especially, we've been working on how they're going to do their timesheets and how we're going forward so that we can have the documentation that we need to have. So our comptroller has been working on that, and everybody's trying to take ownership of their own individual departments. We are scheduling for June, which typically that they have historically done in June evaluations. We're also going to start our staff budget meetings so that we can prepare for a budget. Because there are a lot of things that they have on their wish list, they have to be able to justify. A lot of staff that they have to be able to justify. And we need to get a budget that we can bring forward to the council for the workshops.
Do all the departments get a copy of their budget?
All departments have a full comprehensive budget, a complete budget, not just their department, a complete budget.
Do they have it on a monthly basis? Do they review it with you on a monthly basis?
No, we don't necessarily review budget on a monthly basis, it's an annual basis, but we're going through a training process. But the budget is a comprehensive budget that we put forward.
And all the employee, all the employee heads are pretty, they can comprehend the budget pretty well.
Well,
I have difficult sometimes, so that's.
Well, actually, our comptroller has been spending some time with each individual department, especially those who do a lot of invoicing, which is the water department, the sewer department, and administration as well. And so what we're trying to get them to understand is how things are coded, how things are paid for, and how things are assessed in reference to the budget process.
So that's a Connie's been working with them?
Connie's been working with them in reference to that. I can't speak to how Lord did it in reference to the past, but I know everyone did not have a budget when I got it.
That's one of the overwhelming parts of it sometimes, you know, when you introduce that aspect of the budget, when your department has it, they haven't been hands-on before.
They need to be hands-on and take ownership. Listen, I think you mentioned earlier, Councilman, that they have to take accountability, and so they have to be accountable for what's in the budget. They have to understand how they're coding it. We're working on definitely getting our PO process going so everybody can do purchase order, and there has to be a written policy, which we don't have right now, which we are constructing as we go forward. Are there any things on the solvency plan? The next question in reference to, I believe, is equipment. I think the thing that maybe getting everybody interested is actually the equipment that the city purchased in reference to our street maintenance program. Some time ago, I presented to you to have a street maintenance program using street taxes, which they've had for 2 years, and you haven't done a street program. We presented, I believe, 10 streets to do the improvements on. Somewhere we did a budget of money, I believe it's somewhere around $440,000 to move forward to do street improvements. Once we've been able to take it, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you okay?
Once we had a chance to take analysis of our equipment and our supplies, we have a 20-year-old front loader that actually we had to make some repairs to the tune of $10,000. After we're agreeing with our fleet maintenance manager, he has established that that will not make it through the course of a year, less known the course of putting in 10 streets. I myself contacted the Texas comptroller in order for them to tell us can we use funding from the street program to purchase equipment to do streets. They sent us back an email saying, yes, you are allowed to use street tax money in reference to purchase equipment for a street program. If you use the equipment on anything else, you have to use it all the time. And there's a tracking device in place. And they did email us a spreadsheet to allow us to do it in case we have to use this piece of equipment for something other than the roads. Having done that, we also looked into going to the Texas buyback plan, which the city is a component to, our cooperative, which means we don't have to go out to bid for this piece of equipment. We did get 3 proposals from the Texas buyback board, and actually have purchased equipment somewhere around $143,000 with those funds. I met with and discussed this with the mayor. I think Mr. Burrow had some questions in reference to that, and even the city attorney to make sure that we had everything in place that we need to have the proper documentation to purchase this large piece of equipment. In this time of purchasing this piece of equipment, our city street supervisor found another gainful employment with the oil industry. And so what I'd like you to do is to have training on this machine, the maintainer, the oil machine, and another, in the interim until we're actually allowed to find a supervisor. Thank you, Mayor, has helped me with the Commissioner File, who has agreed to, in exchange, to do some training with the city of Floresville on a project that the city of that Wilson County has come forward and putting in the street. So our staff will have an opportunity to train on a real life issue at no cost to the city. There'll be some things I'll bring to you later, to allow us to do the training, and we should be having our street program up. Hopefully, we can make all 10 streets, now that we have equipment that works, and can be timely, we won't have to actually rent a new equipment.
So we have the new one plus the one that we repaired?
We have the new case, yes, we have the new 2014 case front loader, and we also have the 20-year-old Volvo front loader that hydraulics sometimes go in and out. And they wouldn't even warranty the last piece of work they did because of the age of the equipment. It was over 20 years old. And as a side note, most of our vehicles, on average, are over 10 years old. The police vehicles.
What made it, what made the front end loader not suitable to
The hydraulics. Public Works uses that truck a lot. Parks use it a lot to carry things back and forth, but mostly just branches and things such as that. However, you're going to do a street program, you're moving gravel, asphalt, and other things that are heavy, and it's the hydraulic system that's shot in the system. It's actually leaking right now. I went to go see it the other day. It can go up and down, it's a little tender. So we're using that and reserving that one for parks, but we need to have a heavy front loader if we're going to do any kind of program for streets.
So how are we doing about on the street that we're supposed to have done in 10 months on that project? How is that project going?
It looks like we should probably start in another 3 weeks. We're going to start we want to make sure the members are properly trained. I discovered that actually we have only 2 staff that can drive currently, one that has a CDL. And so what we need to do is have cross-training, not just on the front loader, but all the equipment.
But have we done any of the streets? One?
We're going to start the streets in about 3 weeks when we complete training.
How long will that take?
Whoa, according to the presentation that I had before, we should have it done in 9 months.
And who's going to be the operator? I know Mr. Bettis had left, that he was the one who was in charge of the streets and the one that kind of knew a little more than, I'm not saying that the other didn't know, but I'm just saying he was in charge.
Well, actually, Mr. President, is not the one on the crew that had the most seniority here with the city of Floresville. There are actually 2. Actually, I think Hector's in the room that had most seniority with him. So we're going to be working together to train and to be able to cross-train all staff and allow them an opportunity to put this street program together. But the nice thing about Texas is that the weather's here, and you typically can work year-round on streets. Where I come from, you don't get a couple of good months out of the year, but we don't have any problem with weather here typically.
And who are those 2 gentlemen, you don't mind me asking?
2 gentlemen, what?
The men that have the seniority and have the experience.
Well, Hector has a lot of experience in reference to putting streets together. Also, I'm sorry. Yes.
Who else?
Also, Tommy, who's on the Parks Department, he actually has the role in reference to do that. My main concern is the maintainer and getting them used to working with the front loader, because the maintainer's a little special. And so that's what I spoke to Commissioner Cloud about in reference to training. He has several people who are certified riding a maintainer, and we're going to be able to work with that.
So we're looking good on the timing for the 10 months to complete.
We should be looking good on the 10 months for the completion. As I said before, the weather is amenable. We haven't had much rain. I don't anticipate much snow here, and so we shouldn't have any problem.
And what street is this again?
Well, there's a total of 10 that I presented to you previously, and so that's what the 10 that we're going to be working on.
And y'all looked into the infrastructure, the infrastructure is fine underneath?
We've actually cambered some of them and going forward. They've marked some of the streets. They've located some of the manholes that were asphalt over before. We've actually used a camera in reference to them to locate. We shouldn't have any anticipation from water, any problem from water, so we're looking to go. But we know when we start uncovering, it's a case-by-case scenario, but we don't anticipate any water breaks.
So Henrietta, the purchase of the equipment, it didn't affect the amount allowed for the street repair limit?
It's part of that big pool of money, and so we're hoping that we can actually now move most of our equipment ourselves. Part of the fee that we had was a trucking company that would come and help us move it before, because they know our front loader couldn't do all that back and forth load with the dump trucks and things such as that. So we're hoping that the cost and the savings of not having to rent out and lease someone, that we should be able to recoup that cost. It is a major investment, but it's one that's well overdue.
Are we setting up procedures for usage other than streets?
Well, this machine actually is purposed for streets. So that's why we repaired the other one, that's 20 years old, to use for other issues. But we have a matrix that we put it in so that we have to, in auditing purposes, show them that we actually use it mostly for streets, and then there's another one where we have to transfer money. But we'll have to wait and see when it actually gets operated.
Henrietta, you mentioned that the overloader was still leaking oil.
It's hydraulic fluid, they have to watch it and watch it very carefully. But Eli has been putting band-aids on that for some time, keeping it going. The hydraulic system is fixed now, so we're monitoring very quickly. He was tearing apart two lawnmowers when I was over there, trying to fix those blades, and that's something we will definitely be coming back to you, asking for in budget purposes to buy commercial lawnmowers, because we mow so much, including TxDOT's right of ways.
Now, would it be feasible to get rid of that loader and sell it while it's still operating and get something out of it? And try to buy a used?
Volvo doesn't want it. They don't know what to do with a 20-year-old machine. And we do use it for parts, so we probably want to use it till it dies, but my anticipation is not to put, invest any more additional funds into that.
Was it already purchased, used, that Volvo?
From what I understood,
Yes. Actually, it's 26 years old, we've had it 20 years.
So we spent $10,000 to fix it, but it's still leaking.
It's just a little, they can't warranty it, it's 26 years old, but parts needs both. And if I'm gonna have a street program working, they can't borrow the same thing. This is a big piece of equipment. And so parts